You just could confirm with Jody. We are started. Over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I call the meeting to order and declare quorum is present. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, would you please begin this hearing with the land recognition statement?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, and acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendships of Indigenous people. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just going to introduce everyone here on the panel so we all know who everyone is here. I'm the chair today, filling in for Isaiah. My name is John Kappa.
And my name is Colin McCann.
And Brenda Stan.
Thank you. And filling in for the Secretary Treasurer is...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. William Tigert.
And I believe Andrew is here from planning, right? Okay. And engineering manager, Derek, is Derek here? Not sure if Derek is
I'll
here.
be filling out for Mr. Derek Young. Jim.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, this is a hybrid hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present and viewing at home via live stream will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed should an application be approved. Voicing objections in these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. During the public portion of each application, we will hear from anyone wishing to submit verbal comments or submit a written comment via email to clerks@pelham.ca. Comments received following the public portion will not be considered. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions may be determined by the committee following the hearing. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and members of the public that have submitted documents. Notices of decisions can also be obtained by request to the Secretary Treasurer. Committee members are asked to raise your hand if you would like to speak and vote. Applicants, agents, and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the webinar hearing once a decision has been made on their application. Committee members, I am looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I second the motion.
Okay. All right. One last area. Does anyone on this panel have a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing? If no, from everyone, add I have none.
I have none.
And I have none.
And I have none. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment today?
Mr. Chair, there were no requests provided for withdrawals or adjournments to the applications in front of the committee today.
Okay, so our first application today will be file A22-/2023 P 998 Hay Street, Pelham. The application, the variants are minor in nature. Let me just start from the beginning. Applications are made for minor variants. Minimal rear yard setback to an accessory structure of .11 meters. Minimum interior side yard setback to an accessory structure of .1 meters. The reasons we're here, the variances are minor in nature, as it is not anticipated to.
Chair, I think we're getting
I
ahead
need
of
to wait.
ourselves.
Yes, you're right. I apologize. I need to have you present the summary presentation.
Yes, and I'm going to turn that over to the legislative coordinator
Okay.
to just introduce the application.
The Town of Pelham is holding hybrid Committee of Adjustment hearings. A hybrid hearing involves a mixture of in-person and remote attendance participation. The following presentations are based upon the Town of Pelham's Planning Department report and analysis. Please note, no decisions have been made prior to this public hearing. All comments received from commenting agencies and the public have been forwarded in full to the Committee of Adjustment members for their consideration and will appear summarized on the slides to follow. Decorum. The Committee of Adjustment is a formal public hearing requiring decorum, meaning all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak virtually or are participating in person, you will be given an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If you are live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Comments must be received during the public portion of the meeting, otherwise they will not be considered. Inappropriate comments will not be tolerated. If decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons will be asked to leave. Application for minor variance, file number A222023P, 998 Hayes Street. Excerpts from the planning report include: the subject land is located on the west side of Hayes Street, known locally as 998 Hayes Street in the town of Pelham. The application seeks relief from Section 3.1, subsection G, accessory uses, buildings, and structures, to permit a minimum rear yard setback to an accessory structure of .11 meters and a minimum interior side yard setback to an accessory structure of .10 meters, whereas accessory structures are not to be located less than 1 meter from an interior, side, or rear yard line. To date, the following comments have been received. Building Division: a building permit is required for the proposed structure. Public Works Department: any drainage issues caused by the structure on the property or adjacent property shall be the responsibility of the property owner to rectify. Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority: the MPC has no objections to the built lean-to to the west and north sides of the property's accessory build. One public comment was received and is summarized as follows. Mr. Thomas Richardson, solicitor at Sullivan Manny, on behalf of his clients: object to the proposed variance, express concern with noise impacts on neighboring property, submitted the variance does not meet the 4 tests for a minor variance as outlined in the Planning Act. Minor variance test 1. The variance is minor in nature? Yes. Given the slope of the property towards the rear of the property, the structure does not have a significant visual impact from the street or the Steve Bauer Trail to the west. The use of the structure as an extension of the storage area is not anticipated to result in additional noise or visual impacts over and above what is normal for a residential use. Further, the roof structure will not substantially alter the use or function of the site. Minor variance test 2, is the variance desirable for the development or use of land? Yes. The roof structure is intended to provide additional covered storage for the use of the property owners. This will eliminate the need to accommodate an additional accessory structure elsewhere on the site and allows for the retention of existing mature trees located in the rear yard. Does the variance maintain general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Yes. The roof structure abuts an existing wood board fence. The structure is unobtrusive as viewed from the street and Steve Bauer Trail, and access is maintained around the existing accessory structure. A lot grading and drainage plan will be required to ensure that increased runoff from the roof structure will be handled on-site. Minor variance test 4, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? Yes. The purpose of the urban living area designation is to recognize the existing residential areas of Fonthill and Fenwick. The designation permits a wide variety of residential and accessory uses. Recognizing the roof structure is not anticipated to alter the character of the neighborhood, the variance would facilitate compatible and appropriate development of the subject property. The variance does not conflict with any policies subject to fulfillment of the proposed conditions of approval, including a lot grading and drainage plan. Based on the analysis given in above sections, staff is of the opinion the proposal is minor in nature, conforms to the general policies and intent of both the official plan and zoning bylaw, and is appropriate for the development and use of the land. Planning staff recommend that application number A22-2023P be approved subject to the following conditions: that all necessary building permits be acquired to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Town staff will require a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that storm water runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works. The grading plan must show roof drain outlets.
Thank you, Jody. So the next step on the agenda is we have an opportunity if the applicant wants to make any further comments to their application to the committee.
Good afternoon, and through you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Adele Arbor, and I'm a registered professional planner representing the property owners of 998 Hay Street, which is subject to today's minor variance application. Having lived and worked in the Niagara region, it's always a pleasure to come back and visit, and I'm happy to be here today before you. As you are aware, you know what we are requesting through our application, and I don't want to go through that again. However, if you were able to view the survey plan that was submitted, the closest point of the fence structure is in the northwest corner, and so that's why we're asking for the reduction from 1 meter to 0.10 meters and 0.11 meters. And you will notice that in regards to the fence, most fences are either constructed on the mutual property line or just inside the property line, resulting in a minimal setback as the fence is used to support the roof structure. Originally, when this application was filed earlier with the town in October, I asked for a deferral until we were able to have a survey prepared, because I knew we were dealing with very little amounts in terms of the variance being requested. So I wanted to make sure that this committee, without a shadow of a doubt, knew exactly what was being requested by the survey that was prepared. In addition, I provided a planning justification brief in support of this application. And as everybody's mentioned, the minor variance is requested to recognize the constructed roof structure, which is similar to a lean-to. As the accessory structure and the fence were existing, the owners put a roof over the intervening space to shelter garden and lawn tools and other material from the weather. The roof added is attached structurally from the accessory structure to the fence post. An engineered drawing of the roof structure was also appended to my submission. The property owners did not realize that they required a building permit to undertake this work, and hence that's why we were before the committee today. As the rear yard exhibits several mature trees, there doesn't appear to be any place to add another accessory structure without removing any of the trees. In my professional planning opinion, it is this application that meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, which are the same conclusion arrived by the Pelham planning staff. The variance is minor in nature. The roof structure, given the slope of the land towards the rear of the property, and given the structure is buffered by solid board-on-board fence, visual impacts are minimized. The variance is desirable. The roof structure represents an appropriate development and use of the land. The use of the roof structure is very much a permitted normal use in a residential area and maintains and supports the character of the existing residential area. It also appears to be appropriate and desirable development of the residential property and achieves compatibility with the existing residential area. The variance requested also maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, as accessory structures are a common feature of rear yards, and the roof structure doesn't appear to alter the character of the neighborhood. Access is being maintained around the accessory structure, and the roofed area appears to be compatible with neighboring properties. With the inclusion of the roof structure, the lot coverage of all accessory structures is under the maximum permitted at 10% for the residential one zone, and also under the maximum lot coverage of 50%. I concur with the town's planning report before the committee today and agree with the recommended conditions in support of the minor variance. Therefore, I would request that this committee support the minor variance application. I also have a petition that the property owner has acquired, and it has 74 signatures on it. Should I give it to you?
Either one. Jody's fine.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Go for it. You go first.
Just want to confirm the fence to which the lean-to roof is attached is exclusively the owner's, It's not down a mutual property line.
That's correct. The fence is inside the property owner's property.
Okay.
And it is the 0.10 and 0.11 meters from the property line, which is confirmed by the survey that we submitted.
If there are no other questions at this time from the committee?
I have a couple questions. I wanted to just understand a couple things. So it's already built, right? So at the end of the day, how has the rain affected the area? And I don't know if I should be asking you this question or maybe the other side, but I just want to, because it's there, right? So to me, it's good to understand that, because the condition includes, the drainage solution, right? So I just, have you heard anything? Have they mentioned anything?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to defer. You could hear from the property
Right.
owner, so he could tell you what he's experienced within the confines of his property. And also, the town is requesting the lot drainage plan as well, which we will produce.
Okay.
So perhaps the property owner could speak to that, just his experience on his property.
Okay, and just my last question, sorry. The petition itself,
Yes?
what is it about? Like, what is the statement? I haven't been able to read it or anything. Maybe we could just read the statement that people signed for so that we know what it exactly is.
I can read
Yeah,
that to you.
please.
It's addressed to the Committee of Adjustment for today's hearing. And we, the undersigned, have received information about the public hearing for the above noted file. We understand that this will be part of the public record, including the personal information provided. We would like it known that we are not in opposition of the application, but instead support the applicant's application.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. When we built the outbuilding,
Excuse me, sir, just your name first?
oh,
Just
I'm
your-
sorry,
Yeah,
Dan Tossich,
No problem.
988 East, sorry about that.
yeah, no problem.
Anyways, when we had the building designed and built, on the west side, the rear side, we had a 5-foot overhang, which conformed to the setback requirements of the roof. But the fence is just under 8 feet away from that, okay? So basically, you've got about 2.5 to 3 feet that is not covered by the overhang, which has appropriate eavesdropping and drainage. So the exposure to water is like about this much, but we have a drain in one corner, everything's sloped to the one corner and goes out the back. On the north side, it's almost very minimal, you know, because we had the appropriate overhang from the building wall. I think it was 18 inches plus eaves troughs. So there's extremely limited water coming off of that. And we had it sloped with a scrubber drain, and it goes down and out to the back towards the, you know, towards the little water course and the Stephen Bauer Trail, which is normal. So really, there's nothing there that affects any major water coming.
Okay.
Is there anything else I can?
No, Brenda, do you have any?
Okay,
No?
thank
No,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have one pre-registered individual who is going to speak, Mr. Tom Richardson from Sullivan and Mahoney.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Richardson. I am a senior counsel with the law firm of Sullivan, Manny in St. Catharines. I appear this evening on behalf of Robert and Esther Huffam, the owners of property located at 1000 Hay Street, the property lying immediately to the north of the subject property at 998 Hay Street. You will have received our letter of November the 21st, 2023, in which we respectfully request that this committee deny the application which is before you, and we set out in our letter the reasons why we make that request to you. I wish now to make some additional comments to those that are set out on my letter. The letter was prepared before seeing the staff report, in fact, was intended to be in the hands of staff when they prepared the report, and that's why it's attached to the report. I've prepared a small presentation booklet in a hard copy, which I will ask you to consider these materials. I've provided one to Ms. Arbor when I first got here this afternoon, and I've provided them to you as well. On the agenda, it indicates that Mr. and Mrs. Huffman will be speaking. They will not. They are viewing this proceeding virtually. They're in Florida, but they will not be speaking. I'll be the only person speaking on behalf of my client. I've been practicing law now for almost 52 years. 50 years of that has been in municipal land use planning and local government. I spent 12 years in-house as the city solicitor for the city of St. Catharines, and I'm recognized by the Law Society as a specialist in municipal law, land use planning, and local government. It's been my experience over those 50 years that some of the most contentious neighborhood issues arise before the committees of adjustment. I have also come to the conclusion that in many instances, the planners regard minor variance applications as being literally minor to be given little attention to. I am concerned that the application before you this evening falls into that category. I'm going to suggest to you that my understanding of the proceeding of this application is a little bit different than was described to you by Ms. Arbor, and in fact, that will be shown in my exhibit book. There was, as the planning report indicates, a previous application before the committee back in 2017, which resulted in the accessory structure which exists there now. This is a photo which was taken by the Village Voice and indicates the storage shed as being under construction. It's there, of course, now. It exists. That's the structure onto which has been appended the storage area that we're speaking about. Now, the booklet before you has 4 tabs. I'd like to take you to the first tab. This is where my recollection and Mrs. Arbor's differ. This is the site plan which we received as part of the original application, which was scheduled to be heard by this committee in in October the 3rd, 2023. You'll note that someone has placed on it notations such as roofed structure and the apparent setbacks of 0.127 meters and 0.152 meters. The site plan apparently describes the circumstances found on the site as of March the 26th, 2017, on which there have been appended now the location of the structure which is before you today. We filed an objection to the original application supported by this plan with a letter similar to the one that's attached to your report tonight, but it's not the same letter. And that's why I say I differ with Ms. Arbor. In fact, I understand that what happened was after we filed our objection, then the applicant went out, got himself a survey, and discovered that things are different. And I'm going to show you what we submitted with the letter that's at tab 2. This is a photocopy of the plan I just showed you from 2017, on which my clients have appended things that weren't shown on the application that was made. So, for example, they've highlighted in yellow a large raised deck on concrete pillars and an additional room, which is not shown on the original plan, all of which were added to the home after the 2017 application. The structure we're talking about is in the upper left-hand corner. Now, I'd ask you to turn to tab 3. This is the survey which resulted from, I think, our letter objecting to what was an incomplete description of what was to be found on the site. And as Ms. Arbor says, this time they did it right and they went out and they got a survey. And we find, for example, that the distances of the setback are reduced even further. I had to go on Google to see what 0.11 meters is. It's 4 inches. What we're talking about is a setback about the width of a 2x4. That's the setback for the building with the attachment to that building that I've shown in front of you. Now, the planning staff comments, starting on page 7, reference a site plan submitted with building permit applications. They say showing the area of the existing dwelling at 358.9 square meters, the dwelling addition, which we highlighted in our submission back in the fall, of 35.0 square meters, the area of the raised deck, which we raised in our letter last fall, now 77.6 square meters. It says the area of the existing accessory dwelling, that is the 7-meter high structure that's shown in the photo which is in front of you, and the covered structure of 17.9 square meters. Now, if you look at the survey which has been submitted with this application, I'm going to point out a number of things. First of all, the deck has not been given dimensions. There's no dimension for the deck. It's shown now, but it's not there. And if you look at the table beneath the survey, which gives coverages and percentages, the deck isn't included. So presumably what staff's saying is they have some other information on which they base the figure, but it's certainly not part of the application which was put to you. So we question whether the area, the coverage, is in fact correct. In the upper left-hand corner, we find the 7-meter tall building with the enclosed structure. I'm going to point to you what's not shown there. Where are the dimensions of the enclosed area? There are no dimensions. What is the height of the enclosed structure? There's no height provided. Now, I'm going to pause, as I think the committee will be aware the maximum height of an accessory structure in the new 2022 bylaw is 7 meters. That's 7 meters. That's the maximum height that can be permitted for an accessory structure and what's being recommended to you 4 inches away from the property line. Now, I'd like you, if you would turn to the staff report, the recommendation, or the request and recommendation. It's set out several times in the report. I've gone to page 1 of the report, and you'll find the following application, or the following request. Section 131G, accessory uses, buildings, and structures, to permit a minimum rear yard setback to an accessory structure of 0.11 meters and a minimum interior side yard setback to an accessory structure of 0.10 meters, whereas accessory structures are not to be located less than 1 meter from an interior side or rear yard line. Now, I hope you still have the survey open, because I'm going to ask again, how big is the building that this recommendation is advising you to approve? There is, I say, no limitation at all. So while they've shown a structure that's less than the length and width of the building, there's nothing in the recommendation before you which says that's what this structure before you will be at all. So the recommendation before is you can have an accessory structure anywhere you want 4 inches away from the property line. It doesn't access or refer to what's being shown to you. It doesn't refer to the size of the structure. It doesn't say that's the structure that we're approving. In fact, the terminology you have heard is being used differently. The recommendation before you is an accessory structure. That's a defined term in your bylaw. What we have been talking about on the survey is covered storage with a flat roof. Who says it's going to have a flat roof? There's no limitation in the recommendation to say to you that it's going to be a flat roof. And finally, the point about height. There is nothing in the recommendation which limits the height of this covered storage area to the height of the fence. And we don't know what that is. It's not given on the survey or in the application. There's nothing, if you approve the recommendations before you, there is nothing to approve Mr. Tasich from constructing an addition to his shed 7 meters tall, the same as this. 7 meters tall, 4 inches from the property line. And that's why I said at the beginning, minor variances can be very troublesome between neighbors. It takes a great deal of care to avoid exacerbating the issues between the neighbors. My respectful submission to you this evening is that care hasn't been taken here. Now, I'd like to show one other thing. If you were to turn to the staff report, I was going to give you the reference. At the bottom of page 7, you will find the following statement. It is not anticipated the variance will contribute to substantial noise impacts over and above what is normal for a use accessory to a residential use that is permitted to be 1 meter from the property line. I'm going to pause there. There's nothing in the recommendation which tells you it's going to be used for storage for lawn ornament or lawn equipment, such as a lawnmower. Nothing at all as to usage. My clients have raised concern that there's in fact a business being carried on in what was originally called a storage shed, a 7 meter tall storage shed. There's no limitation here as to the use that can be made. And now I'll go back to the quote at the bottom of page 7. Based on a review of the aerial imagery of the neighboring property, the cabana, which is a cabana on my client's property, here it is under construction, and you can see the shed in the background. Based on a review of the aerial imagery of the neighboring property, the cabana is approximately 3 meters away from the property line and the pool is approximately 6 meters from the property line. Now, I'm going to ask you to turn to the last tab in my little booklet. That's the cabana. It's 6 feet from the property line, not 13 meters. It's 6 feet, right next to where you're being asked to approve this 7-meter tall addition to an accessory structure. There's not been very much care and attention given to impact, and you will have heard both in the report and the submissions from Ms. Arbor the talk about roof structure. There is nothing in this report which limits the roof structure to what you saw in the photographs, which is a piece of plywood appended between the fence and the wall of this building. Nothing at all. There's no limitation which says that's what you're going to get, or my neighbor's going to get. What you have is an open-ended recommendation to approve something that can be much larger, much taller, and with whatever use the neighbor is making of a shed now to be extended into that up to 4 inches from the property line and 6 feet from the cabana which my client has constructed. And I can confess to you, the cabana, and you'll see some of the screening with it, was put up to try and shield the appearance of the 7-meter tall accessory building, which was approved as a result of a minor variance in 2017. So my respectful submission is to this committee as follows, that you deny this application on the basis that it has not been fully considered, on the basis that the assessment given succinctly by the planners in that chart in the report assesses one set of facts, but there is absolutely nothing in the recommendation before you which guarantees that those are the facts which will be in place as soon as this decision is approved and not appealed. So I'm asking that you deny the application on that basis. Thank you. I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Tom. I thank you for the detailed explanation of kind of what the outcomes might be. I think that's what you were describing there in your
Right.
presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Not for this witness, no.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the only question I have for you is that in terms of the first time around, because I think this is the second time, what has changed? What has been the difference between the two applications? Basically, the zoning document, and that's about it. Am I right? I don't know if there's any other.
Do you mean the application
Yes.
in 2017?
Correct.
The earlier bylaw, I've forgotten the number of it now, the planners will know. Height was regulated to the midpoint between the eave and the peak. And so the application for minor variance in 2017 was to increase it, I believe it was from 3.5 meters to the midpoint, up to 5.5 meters. But what that results in is a 7-meter tall structure.
Right.
Under the current zoning bylaw, the permitted height for an accessory structure is now 7 meters. And that's what I was referencing when I say there's nothing in here which limits the height of the accessory addition that you're being asked to approve.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. That's good for me. Anyone else have any questions?
I just
for
have
Tom?
a quick question. In terms of can you see the roof from the adjacent property? Can the structure be seen from the adjacent property?
Not from the ground for two reasons. One, because it is constructed to the top of the fence now, and there are pictures, I think, including in our letter to you. And because of the cabana and the screening that my clients have put up to try and screen the 7-meter tall shed. However, they can see it from their home looking over, and some of the photos that were in our material were taken from the second floor. But my point is, there's no guarantee that that's what you're going to get with the recommendation that's here before you now. There's nothing to say that it will be limited to 6 feet or the top of the fence, whatever that height is. The height of the fence isn't given either. But there's nothing to say that that's what we'll get if you approve the recommendation that's before you today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Any further questions from anyone for the,
Okay, Mr. Chair, if there's no more questions for Mr. Richardson at this point, we would open the floor up to any other member of the public that wants to speak to the application, if there is anyone. And seeing none, then I will just, Mr. Chair, the applicant's
Yeah.
agent.
I only have a couple of comments here I'd like to make.
Well, just before we have to make sure we close the public
there's somebody-
session.
sorry, I didn't see
And the
your hand go
applicant
up.
agent has another comment.
I apologize.
Chairman, I didn't know if I was able to respond
Sure.
to the presentation that Mr. Richardson's made. From my experience with minor variances, you have the application before you, and it's existing what we are proposing. So whether you say, the drawing is always attached to the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. So I beg to differ and disagree that, the structure could go any higher in terms of what's being approved by the committee. So the actual drawing and the decision are tied into what's being presented to the committee.
Well, can I, anyone else? Okay.
And I do have to check now to
Yep.
see if we've received any email input on the application or the hearing today, and confirming no, we haven't. So do you have,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, a question for clarification?
Yeah, a question to the team.
What we'll do is we'll close the public commenting section if there's no other public commenting. Then we'll get into the committee discussion where you'll have full reign to ask the town planning staff questions
Okay, excellent.
on what you've heard during the public process.
All right.
So, having said that, I would be looking for you to get a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
So moved.
I second that motion.
Okay, so now, Mr. Chair, that the public portion of the meeting is closed, the committee is able to make comments, have a discussion, or ask staff for clarification or input into what you've heard so far.
And I just want to apologize for getting ahead of myself here. I've been doing that. Please go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, we'll go right to staff and ask the question that has been raised. If we approve this, flat roof between the existing structure and the fence, does it become part of that structure and therefore could be elevated to whatever the approved height of the main structure is?
Mr. Chair, through you, so the application before you is what you are dealing with, and that includes the existing height of that structure. So you're evaluating the application based on the information that you have. If the applicant wanted to change that after you've made the decision, then they would not be conforming with your decision. So the height of that structure is the height that it currently exists at today, and your approval of that, if you were to approve this requested variance, would not allow for an increase in height. Perhaps to provide clarity or exactness, you could make it the decision being conditional that the height not exceed the height of the fence to, again, provide that further clarity, but that's just, at this point, that would be considered to be redundant. It's not necessary, but if that's something you wanted to do just to ensure that that's what everybody understands, then that's what else you could do.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions, Brenda? Yeah, the only comments I'd like to make before we move on to the next section is that it seems that there may be some doubt, you know, there's obviously a situation that's happened between the two neighbors and very, very obvious what's happening here. But if we are assured as a committee that we can include that if there any change to the existing information that we saw presented today, that we, you know, we be notified of that and that become a condition, because at the end of the day, if it's that simple and it's only for storage, but if the owner at any point would want to push that wall out to 4 inches from the end and then build again, my hope would be that they would come back to the town and do what they need to do to get a permit for that or whatever. I mean, we got to keep it exactly the way it is today, then that's fine. And that's really, I think, where a lot of it's sitting. And in terms of the survey being inadequate, that is one thing that I see that with what Tom said, there's a lot of what ifs. So if we're agreeing to this and the change is only for what's existing in the pictures that we saw, that's fine. I just wanted to make that kind of on record so that we know that that's happening. And that's pretty much it for my comments.
So, Mr. Chair, I think in light of what the committee's heard today, it would be a reasonable step to take what the Director of Planning and Development has suggested, and that we add a condition, if you're considering approval, to limit the height as you described. So I don't know, Ms. Weens, if you could just repeat that and see if the committee's satisfied to add that as a condition?
Mr. Chair, through you, so the current structure does not exceed the height of the fence, so you would want to add a condition that if you're going to approve it, that it be subject to the current height, not to exceed the height of the fence.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for clarification. At this point, I'll move to vote on this.
Yeah, so if the committee's in a position where you want to make a decision on the application, now would be time.
I think we're ready to move forward.
Yep.
So where's the actual, what we're asking here? Yes, exactly.
So I would need a mover and a seconder to provide direction.
I can move it if you like. Okay. With reference file I-22/2023 P998 Haste Street, Pelham, an application made for a minor variance of a minimum yard setback to an accessory structure of 0.11 meters and a minimum interior side yard setback to an accessory structure of 0.10 meters. I move we grant this for the following reasons. The variances are minor in nature as it is not anticipated to result in additional noise or visual impacts over and above what is normal for residential use. The roof structure will not substantially alter the use or function of the site. The intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. The intent of the official plan is maintained. The proposals are desirable for the land as it eliminates the need to accommodate an additional accessory structure elsewhere on the site and allows for the retention of existing mature trees located in the rear yard of the site. This application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. In making this motion, the committee has considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act test for minor variance. And any drainage issues caused by the structure on the property or adjacent properties shall be the responsibility of the property owner to rectify. There are 3 conditions. All necessary building permits be obtained. 2, submit a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan. And 3, the roof structure height will not exceed the height of the existing fence.
So we need a second here?
I second that motion.
Now any discussion, Mr. Chair, on that motion?
No, I think we should just go ahead at this point.
I have no discussion, no.
No. Anybody else? 'Cause- Okay. So,
Satisfied, you can call the vote, please.
So, um, I think, I think, I think, I think we're good. So, 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 I think we let's go ahead and vote on granting this minor variance.
I vote aye.
Yes.
I vote no.
2 votes yes, 1 vote no. The motion is carried, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so on this motion, we did carry the, and grant the minor variances as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our next application this afternoon is A24/2023P. And our legislative coordinator will now introduce the application for the presentation.
Application for minor variance, file A242023P, 1439 Pelham Street. Excerpts from the planning report include the subject land is located on the south side of Pelham Town Square, known locally as 1439 Pelham Street in the town of Pelham. The application seeks relief from Section 8.2.3, landmark site building height, requested a minimum height of 5.56 meters, whereas 12 meters is required. Section 8.2.3, first floor glazing, requesting a minimum of 73% glazing of the first floor, whereas 75% is required. Section 8.2.3, first floor height, requesting a minimum first floor height of 3.05 meters, whereas 4.5 meters is required. Section 4.1.4.1, subsection A, parking space dimensions and requirements, requesting a minimum width of 2.4 meters of a parking stall, whereas 2.6 meters is required. Section 4.1.3, subsection E, barrier-free parking spaces, requesting a minimum width of a barrier-free parking stall of 3.2 meters, whereas 3.4 meters is required. To date, the following comments have been received. From the Building Division, a building permit is required for the proposed additions. Public Works, a site servicing plan, functional servicing report, and site plan indicating the staging area is required at the time of site plan approval. No contractor or equipment is permitted to park on the road. Sidewalk on Pelham Town Square and Pelham Street shall remain open at all times. No public comments were received at the time of writing this report. Minor variance test 1, the variance is minor in nature. For section 8.2.3, landmark site building height, yes, the structure will remain 1 story in height. The redevelopment of the site is not proposed at this time. First floor glazing, yes, the elevations provided by the applicant show a high percentage of glazing on the first story. As part of the renovations, the building will undergo facade improvements that will encourage an active streetscape. First floor height, yes, the variance is not anticipated to result in any negative impacts. Section 4.1.4.1, subsection A, parking space dimensions and requirements. Yes, staff are satisfied that the space can accommodate a standard-sized vehicle. There is a municipal parking lot located approximately 30 meters from the site in which larger vehicles can. Section 4.1.3, subsection E, barrier-free parking spaces. Yes, the parking space would qualify as a Type B accessible space. It is noted there is a 1.5 meter access aisle adjacent to the parking space. Within the Main Street zone, all non-residential development is exempt from any parking requirement. Minor variance test 2, is the variance desirable for the development or use of land? Section 8.2.3, landmark site building height. Yes, the variance will allow the existing building to be repurposed without the need for the comprehensive redevelopment of the site. The variance will facilitate the conversion of an underutilized commercial property into 5 new commercial units. First floor glazing. Yes, the elevations provided by the applicant showing a high percentage of glazing on the first story. As part of the renovations, the building will undergo facade improvements that will encourage an active streetscape. Currently, the facade does not have a high degree of glazing. First floor height. Yes, variance will allow the existing structure to be retained. Section 4.1.4.1, subsection A, parking space dimensions and requirements. Yes, the reduction in the width will allow for an additional space to be located on site. Section 4.1.3, subsection E, barrier-free parking spaces. Yes, parking space would qualify as a Type B accessible space. It is noted there is a 1.5 meter accessible aisle adjacent to the parking space. Does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Section 8.2.3, landmark site building height. Yes, development on landmark sites is generally expected to be iconic and raise the profile of this location. This location meets the criteria of a landmark site. First floor glazing. Yes, the building is proposed to have a high percentage of glazing on both frontages. First floor height. Yes, the facade design incorporates a high percentage of glazing and other building materials, an inviting and pedestrian-oriented frontage as viewed from Pelham Street and Pelham Town Square. Section 4.1.4.1, subsection A, parking space dimensions and requirements. Yes, the site does not require any parking. However, the variance is sought to recognize the deficiency in terms of width of the existing stalls. Section 4.1.3, subsection E, barrier-free parking spaces. Yes, the parking space would qualify as a Type B accessible space. It is noted there is a 1.5 meter access aisle adjacent to the Test 4, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? Yes, the subject lands are designated downtown according to the town's official plan. The purpose of the designation is to maintain and promote downtown Fonthill and downtown Fenwick as the focal points for commerce and hospitality in the town, within which a pedestrian-oriented environment can be fostered. The variance does not conflict with any policies subject to fulfillment of the proposed conditions approval. Planning staff are of the opinion the proposals make efficient use of the land, will not result in overbuilding of the property, will not alter the view, sight lines, or personal enjoyment of the subject property or any neighboring properties, and should not negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood with regards to land use incompatibility, traffic, privacy, and stormwater runoff. Planning staff recommend that application number A242023 be approved subject to the following conditions. That the applicant apply for and receive site plan approval to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Planning and Development. That all necessary building permits be acquired prior to construction commencing to the satisfaction of the Chief Building Official, and that the applicant enter into an encroachment agreement with the town to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works.
Thank you. So the next step in the application hearing today is to ask the applicants if they have additional comments they'd like to put before the committee. If you could just state your name for the record, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, town staff, my name is Emilio Remote Architect. I would represent the Luchetta family. As you're well aware, this project, this building used to be the former TD Bank building, and the Luchetta family purchased this building. For the most part, the minor variants are a form of, I call it housekeeping, in terms of recognizing existing conditions, such as the height of the existing building, some of the existing parking spaces that currently exist in the back of the former bank. So we're trying to tidy those up and make them more compliant within the bylaw. So we are in support of staff's recommendations and have nothing more to add.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, there are no other registered members of the public that wish to speak this application, sorry, easy for me to say. And I will now ask Jody if we've received anything via email relative to this application. Seeing none. So now, if the committee is in favor, we can close the public portion of the meeting. I just need a mover and a seconder.
Does anyone else?
This is just the public portion that we're
Okay.
closing.
Okay.
Then we'll move to members' comments and questions.
I think the lady might have had some comments here. I'm not sure. Excuse me, ma'am, did you have any comments to share?
Sorry?
Do you have any comments to share?
No, I'm merely watching and trying to get a feel for what is happening.
Okay.
So, you know.
Okay, no problem. Sorry about that. I just wanted to double check. Great,
shall
thank
I
you.
leave?
No, absolutely
at all.
not. No, please.
Just want to make sure you
Just
didn't
wanna-
have any
right.
input.
Before we close this section of the hearing, I wanted to make sure you had a moment to speak if you choose to, so that's fine. Okay, yes. Okay, motion to close,
Motion to close the public meeting portion?
Seconded?
okay? And now, from the committee, are there any questions or comments for anyone?
I have no questions.
Just one comment, and I'm just happy to see that there's some movement on doing something with that building.
Okay, then. I don't have really any comments, very self-explanatory in terms of what's being asked here and, you know, quite minor in nature. I do have a question about glazing. I'm going to ask the question because I wanted to understand that, but can someone explain 75% glazing? Am I literally talking about a glazed floor that I would see in a commercial space, or?
Mr. Chair, through you, so the percentage of glazing is windows on a, on a wall.
Got it.
And so in the retail area, we want to have, a high amount of windows instead of blank walls. And while this bank has been there for many years, it didn't have a whole lot of street presence in terms of windows. So that's what we mean by
Excellent. Well, I'm glad I asked that question because I just learned something today. So, I mean, I didn't want to assume, so I thought I'd ask it. Go ahead, please.
Well, no, I had thought of this before, through you, Mr. Chair, I had thought of this before. There's going to be, did I hear correctly, 5 units in this existing structure? Are they going to be through one common entranceway, or are they going to be, for lack of a better word, excuse me, it may not be appropriate, like a strip mall set up where they'll open up onto either the square or Pelham Street? Is that how?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you. So there will be 5 units. They'll each have their own independent entrance. So some of them will have doors entering from Pelham Street, and then there will be introducing some new entrances off of Pelham or Town Square to, again, try to activate that side of the street with activity.
No, that's excellent, thank you.
At this point, I'd like to move forward with approving the recommendation. Did you want to read this one, Brenda?
Yeah, I can do the motion.
Yeah.
We're ready? Okay, application A24, 2023P 1439 Pelham Street. Application is made for minor variances to permit Barry Street parking space width of 3.2 meters, parking stall width of 2.4 meters, landmark building height of 5.56 meters, first floor glazing of 73%, first floor height of 3.05 meters. The application is granted. The variances are minor in nature as the barrier-free parking space qualifies as a type B stall. A standard size vehicle can be accommodated with parking for larger vehicles is available nearby. The structure will remain as 1 story in height. A high percentage of glazing will still be provided on the first story. No negative impacts are anticipated. The intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. The intent of the official plan is maintained. The proposal is desirable as the barrier-free parking spaces qualifies as a type 5 stall with an access aisle. An additional parking space can be accommodated on the site. Allow for the existing building to be repurposed. The building will undergo facade improvements during renovations. and the existing structure will be retained. This application is granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. The Committee of Adjustment considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act test for minor variance. The applicant is aware the sidewalk on Pelham Town Square and Pelham Street shall remain open at all times. The applicant is aware that no contractor equipment shall be placed on the roadway. The applicant is aware that a site servicing report, functional servicing report, and site plan indicating the staging area will be required as part of the site plan approval process. There's 3 conditions. All necessary building permits be obtained, site plan approval be received, and they enter into an encroachment agreement with the town.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. At this point, we should go ahead and vote on the motion?
Yeah, unless there's, Mr. Chair, unless there's more discussion or
I
questions
don't
that the
think
committee
there
has.
is. Does any, you want to
Proceed
add
vote.
something? Everyone's good. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I vote aye.
Yes. Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, 3 votes in the affirmative, none in the negative. That motion is carried.
Right.
So then we only have one more motion before the committee today, and that's the motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second that motion.
Thank you. So I just have some signatures I have to gap.
Okay.
Thank you.